Hello, chess freaks. Thank you for watching this stupid, dumb video that you've accidentally clicked and continued to watch. I appreciate that. So I, like many of you, not like I like many of you, but similar to many of you, I played chess when I was younger, and kind of in my adolescence realized that, oh my god, I am very bad at this game. And I think chess gets this bad rep where, is it rep or rap? I think chess gets this stigma about it where two people will sit down and the victor is obviously the most intelligent of the two players or something like that. And I it's not until recently that I realized that's not true. It's just probably true. There's actually a little bit more strategy to it than I thought initially. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to try to learn? To me it is, anyway. And it saves me from the mind-numbing reality that is my everyday life to make videos like this. So I just thought I would go through one of these chess games that I played and just talk about it, think about it. Let's see if it's any fun for anybody. So I'm white. So fuck me. And let's see what move I made first. Let's see. Let's just find out. All right, here we go. All right. I don't know the names for this. Except, yes, I do. This is the King's Gambit, right? I don't know. Anyway, it opens up my queen and my bishop to move diagonally. But it also... Never mind. Let's just see. I don't know. I don't know what Black did in response to this. They'll probably move their king's pawn 2 spaces forward to meet mine, because that seems like what most people do. They did not. Okay, they moved their little stupid knight and threatened my pawn. So I'm going to want to do something that controls, right? People tell me, okay, so here's a thing that people have told me before. I was playing against this guy, coworker of mine, and he told me that you're always going to want to control the middle of the board. Let's see if I do it. Nope. This is a pretty stupid follow-up move, I think, right? I probably shouldn't have moved that pawn. I probably should have... I could have at least moved the opposite pawn, right? The one in front of my queen, because that would have at least opened up my bishop to move diagonally along the dark spaces. But I could have also moved my knight, on the left-hand side, and kind of... If he had taken my pawn, I would have immediately been able to take his knight with mine, and then also control kind of the middle of the board here. God, I wish I could point to the screen right now. That would be very helpful, and is an oversight that I missed. You know, that's kind of the thing about chess, too, isn't it? You're just constantly reminded of the little things that you miss. It kind of makes you double check, triple check, quadruple check as you go along. All right, let's see. Okay, so I move my pawn up. It really just allows me to move my king diagonally once if I would like, but that's not very many options left to me from this move. So let's see what he does in response to that. He's probably going to want to open up something himself, or else get his other knight into the playing field. Like, I'm not sure if people... I have a tough time with the beginnings of games because I'm never really sure what to do. Everything seems right and everything seems wrong. All right, let's see. Interesting. So he moved it. This is a dumb move, I think. Right? Because it doesn't really... He should have moved his pawn once more. He should have moved his pawn further down, at least, so he can move his rook into play. And this, at least, this also blocks his knight from being able to move where the pawn is now occupying the space. So I'm not sure why he did that. I guess it's because, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is if my bishop takes his pawn, he can get me 3 different ways. But I would never do that, of course. What do I want to do here? I probably want more of the board. I honestly wouldn't mind moving the pawn in front of my queen up 1 or even 2. In fact, let's see what I do. Nope, not that, of course. This is a really early on game. I'm still trying to learn the ropes. And I feel like I've improved even since I played this game. I guess moving this pawn here kind of puts his knight in a position where he has to choose which pawn to take, which is really dumb, because why would I... First of all, he can move to that space right now. His knight can. He can move to the space that my pawn now occupies. He could do it when the pawn's not there, and I would still be up a pawn. I would still be able to take his knight, and... I don't know, just a classic fuck up by me. Let's see what he does in response. What will he... If I were black right now, what would I do? Barring just about a million jokes that popped into my brain. Let's find out. He moves the pawn in front of his knight. Okay, so this, at least, allows him to move his bishop to threaten my pawn. So my pawn will be threatened by 2 of his pieces given he moves his bishop. So in response, I'm going to want to be able to defend my pawn on 2 fronts. So I think something like this, I would want to move the pawn in front of my queen up 1. That's what I would want to do right now. Or the bishop to the right of my king. I would want to move it diagonally to the left 2 spaces. Something like that. Something that would give me control of the center board and also defend that pawn on 2 fronts. That's just speculating as to why he did that. I actually don't know why. Let's see what I did. Okay. Interesting. So so he didn't take either of my pawns. Instead, I moved up my pawn to threaten his knight, taking one of my pawns out of his sights, threatening his knight. This is a pretty good move. I don't mind it. If he moves down 1 to the left 2, I can take him. If he takes my pawn, I can take him. If he moves down 2, right 1, I can take him. If he moves down 1, right 2, it doesn't really affect me much. This is a pretty okay move. Let's see what he does in response. Alright, so he does end up doing that. Is either that or go back to his initial spot, which is like backtracking. And something that I hate doing in chess is being forced to backtrack. But something I've learned is that it's not a bad move. There are times when if you backtrack, it really just leaves your opponent with a board that is specifically designed to hinder that exact move that you just left. So I don't know if that makes sense. I have no context to place that in. We'll see if it happens in one of these videos. So now he's got 2 moves to place him closer to a lot of my pieces. He can move his knight down 1 to the left 2, which won't really put him in too good of a spot. I could move my pawn in front of my queen up 1, exposing his knight to my bishop. Or he could move down 2 and left 1, which would threaten my castle. But I could take him with my pawn. So this isn't a spot that I really want to worry about right now. It's not immediately a threat to me. And when he moves, it's not going to be too big of a threat to me either. So I hope that I don't move to do something about it. Let's find out. So I move my knight. So this is good. Yeah, this is a good move. No matter where his knight moves, I can take him with mine. And now I also have a little bit more control of the center of the board. That's not a bad move. In fact, have I just gotten worse at chess? I can't tell. Like, I seem to be doing pretty okay in this game, making moves that I'm not even thinking about months later. If I'm black, what do I want to do now? So I've moved my knight. He still doesn't really have any pieces on the board. Then again, neither do I. Let's see. All right, here we go. We got a game. He moves the pawn in front of his queen down 1, exposing his bishop, creating quite a bit of problems for me. These are the pieces that you want in play automatically. The ones that can cut across the entire board and threaten any piece along a certain line. Something, I don't remember where I learned this. I think I Googled it at one point. And I can't attribute it to anyone. And I'm sorry. And I'm pissed. And I'm heartbroken. Lamenting. And fucking whatever. But it's that you can pin down the other player's pieces. And chess isn't really a game of taking another person's piece. I've been persuaded. It's just a game of making sure that the other person can't move slightly more than you, which is really messed up in a backwards way of explaining what I'm trying to get across here. But we'll see if the board kind of proves that point. I move my pawn up 1. If he takes my pawn, I can take his knight. He couldn't take my pawn before, so it's basically like I'm asking him if he wants to. And the trade-off for him is if he wants to take my pawn, he'll lose his knight, of course, but my pawn will be able to move up if he does not, which is what I assume I'm going to do. And plus, this is just a better place for a pawn to be on the board. It limits the amount of moves that he has to make going forward. If he moves the pawn in front of his king 2 down, I can take it. He can take my pawn if he does that. It just gives me more options doing this. Okay, this is a good move. He moves his bishop in front of the pawn in front of his king. God damn, I wish I could click the screen and you could see where I'm pointing. I wonder if there's an option to do that. Anyway, so he moves his bishop here, and that really just gives him 2 lines of sight that are just meant to really piss me off, and I bet it worked, because he can move diagonally downwards in either direction almost the entire length of the entire board. And the only thing really though that he's threatening here is the pawn on the left, my pawn on the leftmost side of the board, which if he takes, I can take him with my Rook, I'm not too worried about it right now, but this is something that if I want to move my pieces from now on, I'm going to have to think more carefully about. The pieces that are really threatening my moves are his bishop and knight right now, so I need to make sure wherever I move, I have those two pieces in control. And something tells me I might try to move my knight up 2 into the left 1, because that will threaten his bishop. It'll threaten one of his pawns. Of course, if I take either, he'll be able to take me, but he doesn't know if I'm willing to give up my knight for his bishop. And, well, maybe I shouldn't do that either, because if I do move my knight up 2 to the left 1, he'll be able to take my pawn with his knight with no recourse. Let's find out what happens. Okay, so I do end up doing that. I wonder if he does take my pawn then. I think it's what I would do, because it's just a good play on his part. If I take his bishop with my knight, he'll be able to take my pawn with his knight and then threaten my knight. Although I would take his. This is a very interesting board. I wonder if I just leave it be. Because honestly, I don't want... Oh, shit. You know what? It's his turn. Yep. He fucking took my pawn. That whole spiel. I somehow lost track that it was his turn. That was the move that he wanted to make. That was something that I definitely missed at the time. And I'm honestly very glad that I caught it now, because I was beginning to lose faith that I had gained any ability to play chess over these last couple months at all. What do I want to do with this, though? So, I think, honestly, I would move my queen to threaten his knight one space below. That way, if he moves down and to the left 2 in either direction, I can take his knight with my queen. Is there any other... Are there any other negative effects to doing that? I could just move the pawn in front of my queen up 1, threatening his knight. And if he moved down 2 and to the left 1, I could take him with my bishop, king, or queen. And if he moved down 2 to the left right, I could take him with my bishop. If he moves down 1 to the right 2, I could take him with my bishop. And same down 1 to the left. Maybe I should just leave this. Maybe I should focus on another piece. If I moved my center knight up 2 and to the left 1, I could threaten his queen, but he would just take me with his knight. This is going to be an interesting one. I just want to see what happens. Let's see. Okay, so I do end up moving the pawn. I think that's a decent move. You know, at the very least, he's threatened by my bishop. If my pawn is somehow taken by something, I can then capture with my pawn. I'm really interested to see what's going through his mind, what he does in response to this. He moves a pawn, which does open up his bishop. That's probably a pretty good move. He can take my pawn with little to no recourse. Do I lose this game? I really don't know. I think I win it. I mean, come on. I picked a game where I win for the first goddamn video, right? Yeah, I should take his knight with my bishop, right? I'm not seeing anything that I'm not missing anything that you aren't, am I? I should take his knight with my bishop. I don't. Why didn't I? I don't. I guess I'm just trying to. Yeah, I guess I moved the pawn up to try to bait him out and capture him with my rook, even though I've got him. This is the story of my entire life that you're looking at right here. This is me. This is a sure thing dangling in front of me, right? Yet I just make my life a little bit harder to reach the same conclusion. Let's see. Okay, he moves his pawn up, which is kind of a nothing move. I'm no one to judge. I'd say most of my moves are nothing moves. I miss a lot of shit. But please, for the love of God, Adonai, and all that is holy, please, for Christ's sakes, take the knight. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Let's see, what am I missing here? What's the reason I didn't take his knight? It wasn't because his bishop could get me, that's for sure. His rooks are both tied up. His other knight is nowhere near, and his queen's kind of locked in its position right now. Maybe I'm just stupid. How long does it really take me to do this? So long. Wow. And yeah, there was nothing he could do about it. I wonder why I waited so long. Is it just something that, out of sheer ignorance, both he and I missed? I really wish I could get inside my own head, but of course, I've already forgotten those thoughts. And I really don't know what I was thinking. But let's go ahead and backtrack here. I just sped ahead because I was very curious to see when I took his knight and if it had any recourse that I had not seen. Right, I move my queen forward, which this isn't a bad move. If he takes my pawn, I can take his knight. If he moves his knight in any direction, actually, I can take him, and literally any direction. He cannot move up 1 to the right 2, or to the right 1 up 2, and any other place he moves, I can take him, his black knight. This also opens up my queen, so it threatens his knight with my queen. It also opens up my queen to go diagonally to the left, forward, which is a decent move. I'm just biding time here, I guess. He moves his pawn, threatens my my knight. So what does old Casey do here? I'm gonna have to move my knight, of course. I could move my knight to threaten his queen, but again, he can take it with his knight. I can move my knight to take his pawn on the left. Kind of a boring move. He'll take my knight, and all I get is a pawn. I could take his bishop. God damn it. Sorry. Extremely unprofessional. I just rubbed my eye, and I had flossed, and the mint flavor from the floss got in my eye, and it's a pleasantly painful sensation. My eye tastes like mint. It tastes like mint. I don't know. I should probably just retreat here. I should probably go, or I could do something he's not expecting and take his bishop. But I hope that I back off on this one and just stay somewhere that's relative to the center of the board. Oh. See, this is the game I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about earlier. I'm glad it came up. This is something that I've probably forgotten in the last couple weeks even, because it's so difficult, at least it was for me, to wrap my mind around. Yet it's so integral to fucking winning at chess, which is you have the option. If someone threatens your piece, you don't have to retreat. you can just threaten right back. And that's, I guess, what I'm doing here. I'm imposing on two fronts a little bit of a threat. If he takes my... So he knows now that I'm going to take his knight one of two ways, with my bishop or my queen. That's very clear. Like, if it's something we both forgot to notice before, but with this move, I think it's unmistakable. And it also kind of pins down his pawn. If he takes my knight with his pawn, I'll take his pawn, and I'll get a pretty decent place on the board, because I could take his rook in the top right. Excuse me. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm sipping on some black tea, I think, with a spoonful of sugar and a splash of milk until it gets that nice caramel color about it. And, I guess it makes me burp. So, no matter where he moves with his knight, he's done. It gives me a little bit of an extra turn, unless he just wants to take my knight, in which case, fuck it, he probably should take my knight. I was being stupid earlier, dilly-dallying around. Let's see what he does. He takes my knight. And that's fine. I remember I moved my bishop to take his knight. A knight for a knight. This is really a loss for me. I should have seen... It must have been like 7 moves earlier that I could have taken his knight, and I wouldn't have had to sacrifice my knight. But let's see if it ends up mattering in the long run. So here it is. The first check. He positions his queen to put my king in check, and I'm going to want to do something like move the pawn in front of my knight up 2, so that he can't take my queen. Or even, here's what I should do. I should move the pawn up 1 and to the right of my white on the leftmost side of the board. I should move that up 1, so that if he takes with the queen, I can take his queen. If he takes with his pawn, I can take with my pawn. And there will still be a pawn there to block that move. In fact, that's probably what I do, right? Yep. It was either that or move my knight up 2 to the right 1, which would be a little bit more of an incentive. Well, no, that he would just fuck it up with his pawn and take my knight for no reason. So it was a good move to move the pawn up. Let's see if he takes my pawn. No, he doesn't. He moves his bishop, which this is a better spot for that bishop to be, right? Isn't it? Because instead of just being able to diagonally move in one direction, he's got a couple more options now, and he can pin me down a little bit better. I see my pawn in the bottom right is still positioned where if his bishop takes the pawn, my rook will be able to take his bishop. And earlier, I remember his knight was also being a little bit baited by that pawn as well. And really, he should have taken the bait, because he had 2 attack points at that point, right? Let's go back and see a little. Yeah, he should have taken. He definitely should have taken that little pawn in the bottom right hand corner with either his knight or his bishop, because he would have gotten my rook out of it, right? If he would have or a bishop, whichever one I used to. Oh, you see, I've got my bishop there too. So something I didn't even think of. I'm just talking very abstractly now. But that pawn, my white pawn, bottom right, he takes it with his knight. I take his knight with my bishop. He takes my bishop with his bishop. I take his bishop with my rook. All right, I would have won that exchange anyway. It's those things that you think all the way through in the time make it so difficult to understand what you were doing after the fact. Maybe I'm just dumb. Okay, so here we are again. He positioned his bishop a little bit more strategically. That's a fun kind of little move there. Moving my pawn up did restrict the amount of moves my leftmost and only remaining knight has. It can go up 2 to the left 1, and that's it. And it can go up 1 to the right 2, and that's it. Not really any good moves here. What do? I move my pawn up 1. I find that when I don't know what to do, I'll make a nothing move. I'll just move my pawn. My pawn 1. I'll dilly-daddle. I'll dilly-dally? Dilly-dally or dilly-daddle? Whatever. I'll do something to force their hand instead of mine. And it looks like he did the exact same thing, except his move was a little bit better than mine, for sure, because now he's threatening my pawn. However, but now I'm threatening his pawn too. So should I take his newly moved pawn with mine? No, I shouldn't. Because if I take his pawn, he'll take my pawn with his queen. Of course, his queen will be threatened and forced to move that turn, but it's going to be a move that really fucks me. So he would take my pawn. He would rest 3 squares above my knight. He would be in check. I would have to either move my king up 1 or to the left 1, or my knight up 2 to the right 1, where he could take my knight with his pawn, which would block his queen from the check, but it would still give him my knight. Or he could just take my knight with his queen, which would keep my king in check, and we're at the same problem we had. This is a good move for him, unless he takes my pawn. Let's see what I do. I move my pawn up 1. Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad. And I'm an idiot for not thinking of it. Because if he can take that newly moved pawn with his bishop, and I'll take his bishop. His queen is still blocked from checking my king. And now he doesn't get the satisfaction of taking my pawn. Pretty good move. Not bad. What would I do if I were him? See, this is a question that I think too little about. Because I'm a moron. I really need to think more about what their best move is. Spend more time considering what would I do if I were literally the other team and I had this board in front of me. I don't know. It's tough for him. Because that bishop rook pawn combo in the bottom right side of my board, it's really smarter than I probably planned on. Like it's doing a lot for me. He can't move his bishop either direction really anymore. He's gonna want to move maybe his knight in the top left. Oh, he just retreats with his bishop, repositions. So why would he do that? He would do that. I see if he goes diagonally to the left, there's a little opening between his queen and pawn that's open right there. Maybe he's trying to squeeze in there with an extra move with his bishop, or maybe he just felt like he should take a more defensive position with that particular piece. It's hard to say. I wish I had detailed notes of what both of us were thinking at the time. But either way, it's a good move for me. It shows he's retreating, and I think I've got a couple more options here. I might want to move my knight up 1 to the right 2. Just to get my knight in play a little bit. That might be a good move for me, because in 2 turns I can get it below my bishop, which would threaten his pawn. That's a pretty strategically placed pawn, too. I would love to have that. Let's see if I do it. Nope, not even close. So I open up my rook by moving my leftmost pawn up 2, which he could take that pawn with his queen, but then I would, of course, just fucking eviscerate his queen with my pawn or my bishop afterwards. So that's not a good move. This really just limits his queen's moves. Wow. I am getting worse at this game. I'm convinced. Like, that's a pretty good move. It kind of puts him in a little bit of a stranglehold. So, what does he want to do with this? He can't... His queen is kind of effed right now. He can't move horizontally pretty much anywhere. He's going to want to move diagonally along the dark spaces. He could... I don't know. And you know that I must have been thinking about that bishop move of his as well when I did this, because you remember when I said it kind of leaves open a little gap between the queen and the pawn? Well, I filled it. And that, I don't know, that might have been a pretty good move for me. And also I've got a pretty solid front line of defense. The only thing is he's got the exact same line of defense. If I take his black pawn with my queen, he can take me with his bishop. I'm going to want a way to break through and take one of his main pieces quick. I really can't wait for my former self to surprise me and just pick the exact correct move that I should do right now. Of course, it was his turn. A fact that I seem to be continually forgetting. So he moves his knight into play. That's a pretty good move. His bishop wasn't doing him any good, so it doesn't look like he's caring that it's blocking the path of his pigeon. Was I just about to say pigeon instead of bishop? I'm pissed. Anyway, if I end up taking one of those pawns, he can take me with his knight both ways. And if I somehow take his queen, same deal. What do I want to do here? Let me really sit down and think about this for a second.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Okay, some things I'm thinking about are I could move my pawn on the farthest right side of the board up 1, kind of getting rid of that whole bishop situation. It could let his bishop in, but yeah, that wouldn't be a very good move at all. Yeah, I think I'm going to want to try to move in with my knight here. I think that's the best move. Yep, and that's what I do. Yeah, this is just a no-brainer. Everything else just kind of seems like a shitty move or like a nothing move or maybe even a slightly less than nothing move. And at least this way, in one more turn, I can threaten his pawn. I can get a little bit closer to the center board if I position myself one below the bishop. I could sacrifice my pawn, one of my pawns, and get maybe a better strategic placement. In fact, if I move the pawn 2 up and 1 to the left of my knight, he would take my pawn, and I could use my knight to threaten his queen. Let's see what he does. He moves a pawn down, threatening my pawn. Okay, well, great. This will probably make some room for his rook. I bet he's trying to get his rook out there. But if okay, I can take his pawn. He'll take my pawn. Or he'll take my pawn and I can take his pawn with my knight. Either way, I think this is something that was inevitable. In a game like this, when it's kind of like a gridlock situation, sometimes you just have to get rid of one of your pawns. And, you know, pawns can win games. I was playing a pawn against I was playing a game against one of my coworkers, and he used his pawns and almost nothing else and just checkmated me. The guy's way better than me. he moved them up like a line, fucking phalanx, and there was nowhere I could go that wasn't checkmate. And it blew my mind, like how valuable pawns are. But you know what? Sometimes, and I hate to say it, they're trash. So I moved my bishop diagonally up one. Which is, you know, I think I'm getting ready for some shit to happen. If I move my bishop here, it's a little bit of a line of defense I'm setting up for the king. Once all these pawns go away, there's going to be less of a barrier, because a lot of my big players are already out onto the field. And I don't know, maybe this was a nothing move too. My knight isn't going to be there for long. I'm obviously anticipating, and plus this threatens one of his pawns, although not a very good stance, because if I take that pawn, he'll fuck me up with his rook. Okay, and he just moves the pawn anyway, so that's which is weird, because it wasn't in his benefit to move it, because he only had something to gain from keeping that pawn there, which was my bishop. I had no way of taking his rook after he took my bishop, right? I don't know. This is a gridlock game. I do seem to remember all of these early games taking me a long, long, long time, because I would really sit there and think about what my next move should be, sometimes for days. The move limit on this particular app, chess.com, I think is set to 16 days. So we're going by real quickly right now, but I must have thought through dozens of scenarios in the moment and moments leading up to my move. My move being to simply move my rook one space to the left. So, I wonder how long that took me, if it actually was days and days and days, or if it was just like a throwaway move. Because obviously it wasn't doing any good there now, and I can't really. It's not going to really do any good anywhere else after moving it here. For now, if I move it up one, it'll be fine. If I move it up two, he can take, and I can take his pawn. If I move it up three, he can take, and I can take his pawn. So I'd lose a rook either way for the gain of just one pawn. But something tells me that this was just a biding my time move. I think I really, really wanted him to lose the first pawn. Because a pawn's a pawn. Someone's got to lose it, yeah. But it's handy to have those. He takes my pawn. This is fucked up. Alright, I'm going to go blow my nose and maybe poop. I'll be right back. Oh, that does not pause the recording, it seems. Sorry about that. I am back. My bowels are evacuated. And so are my viewers. Okay, so he took my pawn. It's gone. I don't have a pawn anymore. So I'm probably going to want to take his pawn back. You can't just take my pawn without expecting any sort of recourse. Come on, you can't just step up on my pawn and not expect me to, I don't know what I'm doing the same. So I could either take his pawn with my pawn, or I can throw a whole ass wrench into this whole ordeal and take his pawn with my knight. That would threaten one of his pawns. And if could he position anything to really threaten me? Yep, he totally could. Yeah, he definitely could position a bunch of stuff. If I took his pawn with my knight, there is quite a lot that he could do to mess with my knight stay. So I'm hoping that I took his pawn with my pawn. I did. Sweet Mother Mary. Thank Christ. Good job. Okay, cool. Good one. That's what I wanted. So now not much is going to happen without someone taking someone's something from here on out. And that's just how it is. I could move my rook to threaten his pawn. His bishop could take my rook, but I would take his bishop. Just creating a world of opportunity, actually, if that happened. Let's see. Let's see what he does, first of all. He takes my pawn with his bishop. So my whole plan out the window, but that's fine. Oh God, look at this. You see? These are those oversights that are very key that I was talking about earlier. I don't have anything that can immediately take his bishop now. So I'm going to want to position myself in a way where I can really mess up his day no matter what he does with his bishop. So right now his bishop has really 2 moves. And that's diagonally left, going down once or twice. So he doesn't really have much power here, is what I'm saying. Other than the fact that he did take my pawn with his bishop. Sorry, there's a little hair on my screen. I need to do something that will... Excuse me. I need to do something that will take care of his bishop no matter where he moves. I could threaten his bishop with my bishop, but that would really just be giving him a piece for no reason. I'll move my queen to threaten his bishop. If he moves left 1, up 1, I'll take him with my bishop. If he moves left 1, down 1, or left 2, down 2, I can take him either of those ways as well. So he's going to have to retreat with his bishop, which he does. That's fine. That's pretty cool. It's fine. He gets that pawn. That's his. He could have it. And really kudos to him for seeing that. Like, it's one of those things where you have... And that's another tricky thing about chess. Sometimes you'll have boards that you get too comfortable with, where you'll be locked down in this gridlock, and some minor thing will change that leaves an opening. And you just gotta be aware of all of those openings. Impossibly. So I move my rook a little bit closer to my king. This is a better spot for my rook to be if someone threatens my knight. I can easily take that piece. And if someone takes my rook, the piece that did it can be taken by my bishop. So I guess this is a technically better spot for my rook to be. And I think I might have been anticipating some sort of strategy on my opponent's part that could threaten my king in this way as well. Really, my rook was doing nothing, kind of just sitting over there in that corner. And I do like to play my rooks. They're important pieces. You know, these are goddamn checkmate machines. So let's see what he does in response. What would he need to do right now? He needs to, you know what he needs to do? He needs to get his queen on the other side of the board. I think we both do, and I think we're both trying. We're just putting up a hell of a fight doing it. Okay, so at this point, we're just fucking around. I think we're both waiting for the other person to really do something, because if anything, this is a worse place for his his rook to be. First of all, it puts it in direct threat of my bishop. You know, and I might just take that. I might just take the bishop. At this point, I feel like I am getting restless enough that I could just take the rook with my bishop. You could have the damn bishop, just give me your rook. That rook's really causing me a lot of problems. It'll also let my queen get through. Let's see if I do it. Yep, I take it. He takes my bishop, and I should take his pawn with my queen. Yep. What will he do now? He's going to want to... This was really, I think, a loss for him. This is what I was waiting for. Remember, like, just 30 seconds ago when I said we're both waiting for an opportunity to get our queens on the other side of the board? This is it. Okay. This was the move that won the game, I think. Like, that's what's looking like what's going to happen, right? What's he going to be able to do here that will piss me off? He could move his bishop directly to the left of my queen, which means I can't move up and I can't move left without losing my queen. Does he do it? Yeah, he does. But the thing about this is I've got a rook, and I could see it coming. I took him with the rook, and I'm assured that he'll take my rook with his pawn, but it's okay. See, the thing is, you got your big players, and I'm speaking as though I know anything about this game, but just fucking let me say this. If you take a pawn, if you take an opponent's pawn, me personally, I think that's huge. You know, that's one of their pieces from the game board gone. So even though it wasn't a huge victory, I'm still up on this one. Positionally, I think, you know, 'cause look all the places that my queen can go, as opposed to all the places that his queen can go. I can threaten his queen right now. He'll take my queen. I can take his. I can move my queen up to left 2, and threaten 2 pawns. I have wiggle room to move around in. We are technically tied. Maybe I'm getting a little boisterous. I don't know. The sun has gone down. Let's continue on. All right, he moves his bishop to threaten mine, and I don't know. Am I in a takey mood? I could just move my bishop out of the way, and he wouldn't be able to take my bishop. He'd be able to take my... So no matter where I move with my bishop, he can take it. I see. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So will I want to take his bishop to circumvent that? I think the answer is probably yes. Oh, what did I do there? I moved up 1 with my pawn. Right. I'm thinking about the endgame here. I want a second queen. That's right. And regardless, if I had decided to take his bishop, then that decision's been made. I can let him make that move for me. I have gotten much more stupid. So I can focus on my next move. So let's say I decided to take his bishop last turn. That's probably what he's going to want to do. But if he does it, I can just take his bishop anyway. So I'm going to do something else. And I did. I moved my pawn forward 1. He does take my bishop. I take his. And my pawn's still up there. As opposed to if I had just taken his bishop and he took my bishop in return. And I'm 3 spaces away from getting a new queen. That kind of stuff makes a difference, I think. Wow, I don't know if I thought that through at the time. Accidentally, a good move. Who went last? I forget. Guess I did. He moves his king, probably anticipating what I'm doing here. Should I move my queen to prevent... Because he's going to want to move his queen to take my pawn as soon as it turns into any other piece. So I am probably going to want to move my queen to the right 1. I don't do it. I move my rook. Why? Why do I keep moving this little guy? It escapes me. But we're in the end game here. Okay, so he did effectively what I was thinking he was gonna do with his queen, except he did it, I guess, worse. He could have just left his rook there. I literally didn't even see it. Stupidly, until just now when he moved it. But now I could totally just move my. Oh, do I want to do that? If I moved my pawn up one, I could threaten his rook, so he would have to move it. And if in that case, I would want to be able to take his rook with my queen. So I think retroactively, I don't think I'd do this, but I would want to move my queen, right, 3 spaces upward. But then he can move his knight up 2 into the right 1. I'm interested to see what I do here. I move my pawn. God. Such a simple little move. Look at that. Move my pawn. He's either going to take it with his queen, which means I could take his queen with my rook, or he's going to take it with his pawn, and I could take his pawn with my rook. But is there a way that I can work this where... Oh, you know what? You know what this will do? This blocks off his queen from moving to the right side of the board. If it works correctly, if he takes this with his pawn, which he should, right? He should take it with his pawn because he doesn't want to lose his queen. It will block off with his own pawn his queen's ability to move to the right side of the board. That's fucking genius. Look at that. You can use your opponent's pieces as shields. Did I think of that? No. There's no way. I'm too stupid. But it does work in my favor. Like that's a strategic loss to just kind of limit his piece's mobility. That's a pretty good move right there. Cool. So I'm glad to now see that I was thinking about his queen threatening my pawn, which could become a queen. So what do? Do I threaten... Do I threaten his rook with my queen? Do I threaten his rook with my pawn? I don't. I move my queen up. You know why? I know why I moved my queen up. So I want... Oh, Jesus Christ. I think I did think about this. Look at this. So I don't want his queen to be able to move across to the right side of the board, right? So I realize, bam, I got a shield right there. Now it cannot move across. Because the reason why is because I want to be able to take his rook once I threaten it with my pawn. Because he's probably going to move down 1. I'm thinking he's going to move down 1. And if he moves down 3, then I've threatened him with my queen. But if he moves down 2, I get a new queen out of it. So let's see. I move my queen to set up that diagonal fucking capture, and then instantly a wrench. But I can just move my queen up 1 to threaten his rook right now. I don't do it. Of course I don't do it. What do I do? What do I do instead? What is he gonna do? So that whole plan out the window now, all of a sudden. And you really can come up with a fully formed plan in this game, and the other person does something that you just never thought of, and really throws a wrench in what you're doing. Okay, yeah, this is good for him. Moves his queen to the best possible spot you could have your queen right now, which is anywhere else. That was a good move. Fuck me, god damn it. I really should have moved my queen up 1 here to threaten his rook at this moment, right? And then I could have moved up once again. He probably would have moved his rook to the left 1, to threaten my pawn. Then I would have moved it up once again, which would be 2 spaces above where my queen is, where you're seeing my queen right now. And that would have threatened, that would have been a check, actually, and I could have taken his rook. But of course that didn't happen. Instead, I take his pawn. Yeah, I can do that now. Now that his queen's no longer there, I can totally take that pawn with my rook. And that is the beautiful thing that I mentioned earlier. Sometimes the state of a board will change and it'll leave these little openings that you don't notice. And you're able to, you fully realize you're able to take something with no recourse, so you take it. And you have to. And every time you can take a piece, and you know for a fact that the other person's not going to be able to do anything about it, and I say just take it, right? I'm just some guy. That's probably terrible advice. Anyway, a fun little move. I mean, he can't really move anywhere to threaten that rook now. And I probably should take his knight right here. If he doesn't move it. I mean, he can move it. He can move it. If he moves it down 1 and to the left 2 in either direction, I'll take it. And if he can't move it any further south than that because he's got 2 pawns blocking the way, so he can retreat, which he probably should do, leaving my rook available to do fun things. Let's find out. Let's see what he does. See, I probably wanted to take his rook anyway, or his knight anyway. So let's see if I take his knight. Nope, I'm a little bitch. I moved away from that. If this were a newer game, I think I might have done the trade. But I don't know, maybe I was feeling like I still needed a couple of more pieces to end this game. I mean, it's technically a stalemate right now. Just because I'm me and I have my own ego, I pretend that I'm winning right now. And at this time, I really was very nervous that I was very bad at chess. I remember, and I still am. So I was probably playing a little bit defensively because I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of this guy who I've played several games with, and he's very good. You can't slip up in front of him. So I moved my rook below my pawn. This is a good place for it to be, kind of protecting my pawn for when it becomes a queen or something else. Let's see what he does. Okay, he threatens my pawn. That's a pretty good move. It's going to force my hand. I'm gonna have to move my pawn, or I could take. He'll take my pawn, and I'll take his knight, and he won't have a knight anymore, and I'll have just lost a pawn. Let's see if I do it. Nope, I move the pawn, threatening his rook, top right-hand corner. There's a whole shit ton of places that he can move his rook, and let's just work through them. He goes 1 down, he threatens my pawn. I can take his rook, he takes my pawn. He goes 2 down, kind of a nothing move. 3 down, I can take him with my rook. Really, it just takes until the 3rd. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna put a little graphic on the screen for where I'm talking about right now. See this little graphic on the screen? That's the space I'm talking about right now. He can move right there. That's the only other spot where I'd be able to take him or do anything about it. He could threaten my pawn. But of course, and you know what? Here's another graphic. That pawn. Look at that. He could threaten that. But if he took it, I would take his rook with my knight. He's going to want to move his rook anyhow. Let's see where he moves it. Jesus Christ. I wonder if this is something I even considered at the time, too. I just worked through every single position that he could go vertically. This is the kind of stupid mistake that slips my mind sometimes. So he blocked my pawn. God damn it. Great. So that happened. Fantastic. Should I move my queen to threaten both his pieces at the same time? No, I don't do it. I protect my rook a little bit. Okay. It's the wild goddamn West out here. Whatever, let's... It's like the opposite. Is anyone watching this? No, right? There's no one watching this. It's like writing. It's like the inverse of writing. You know, when you're writing, I feel like the beginning and the end is super easy. Or at least you have some sort of a picture in your head of if you're crafting a story, where it's going to start, where it's going to end. It's the middle bits, right, that are tougher. In chess, isn't it the opposite way? Where it's the beginning and end that are hard, but the middle, you really know what you're doing. I don't know. He moves his rook. Why'd he do that? Can you see that I'm trying to put his king in check? That looks like what I'm about to do, right? Oh, you know what? He wants to check my king with his rook. That's what he wants to do. I'm probably going to move my knight to check his king. Let's see. Yep. Check. He's going to have to move his king, or he could try to take my knight, but I can't see any way he could do that, so he moves his king. All right. And now I've got a ball game here. I still can't move my pawn because he threatens it with 2 pieces, so I move my queen to check his king. Something I like to do a lot is, it's kind of similar to the if you can take a piece, why don't you? You know, if you can check the opponent's king with no recourse, or whatever. By the way, how many times have I said recourse in this? You should, right? I mean, what's he gonna do about it? He's gonna threaten me with his queen. In which case I'll take his queen. He really just has to move. So this is a good spot to move to, because he threatens my stupid knight. But you know what I can do? I can probably just take that pawn. Where can I move my queen? I need to find a spot where I can move one of my pieces where that piece cannot be taken if I move it there. I take his rook. Right. Moving his king puts my queen in a threatening position. I'll have to take his rook, and then he can take my queen with his knight. That bastard. Yeah, that's totally what he's gonna... Do I lose this game? Ugh. Sorry, there's another hair on the screen. This is like a roller coaster. This is really stressing me out. 2 hairs have fallen. I'm losing hair over this. I take his rook. He takes my queen. Jeez. Do I win this or do I lose this? Alright, what's the best thing for me to do? Oh, you know what it is? Another queen. So dumb. Alright, so I've got a queen again. So that's pretty cool. And I wonder if I saw that at the time. I'm going to have to go through a game and take notes for one of these things. But okay. Cool, I was able to recoup my queen. I now threaten his knight with my queen, as well as his pawn. He's probably going to want to move his knight, or he's going to want to move his queen so that he can take my queen, or any one of his pieces so that he can take my queen if I take his knight. He threatens my queen. Okay. That's not a bad move at all. If I move to the space above his knight, I can threaten his knight. Or if I move one space farther left, so 1, 2, 3 spaces to my queen's left, I can threaten his king, but of course, he can take me with his queen. If he takes my queen, I can take his knight with my rook, but then he'll be up one. He'll still have a queen, which I really wouldn't be comfortable with him having a queen if I didn't. Let's see what he does. God damn it. And by he, I mean me. So by moving my queen down one to the right one, I'm able to threaten his knight without really losing any ground. Not too bad. And then if he moves his knight anywhere, he's not going to be able to threaten my queen. So he moves his queen. Should I move my rook to be level with my queen, threatening his knight? Anyway, I didn't. I moved my, yeah, you know what? Yeah, he definitely should have taken my knight there. Oh, you know what? No, he fucking shouldn't. Should I? Can I just scratch that from ever having been said? Can I censor that out? That stupid sentence? Because if he took my knight with his king, I would obviously... He can't put himself in checkmate. I would take him with my rook. So I move it away, perhaps stupidly, unnecessarily, I don't know. It at least threatens his pawn. I could probably take his pawn here on my next turn if he doesn't do anything too fucky. He moves his king. I don't take the pawn, but it's nice to know I could have it. I maybe I should have taken the pawn. This is a good move, though. No, I shouldn't have taken the pawn, because he moves down one. Yeah, I don't have it in the sight of my knight, but if he moves down once more, not only can I take him with my king, but I can take him with my knight. That pawn has no chance of becoming a queen. If I move my rook up 2, like I've done here, I really have gotten much stupider, haven't I? I'll threaten his knight. I can take his knight without threat of my rook being taken, because if he took my rook, of course, I'd take him with my queen. Okay, so same deal here. I think I can still take his knight with my rook, and he can't take it with his queen or anything else. Otherwise, he'll put himself into check. So he moves, and this is it. All right, there's the final twist of the knife. That's it. And it wasn't really even me. There are a couple key spots where he could have really done some damage, it looks like. He really should have moved his queen anywhere else here. He should have taken my pawn. No, because then I would have taken him with my queen. Maybe he could have moved to the top row, up, and to the right one. Still protecting the queen. I don't know. I'm not a goddamn bot. I don't know the exact best move for him to do in this position. But anyways, it probably wasn't moving closer to his queen, right? It was probably... He probably had to position... He probably would have had to have looked ahead and positioned himself above his king so that he could take... he could take my rook or something. I'm just as dumb as he is. If I were in his position, I don't know what I would have done. I really don't know what I would have done. But that's kind of the game right there. He can't even take my rook without putting himself in check. So I eventually box him in. And I do remember this game. Come to think of it, because before this game, I was playing this game with one of my coworkers, who, and this kind of harkens back to what I was saying at the very beginning. He's, I would say, much smarter than me, Yet here I am, a bozo. I beat him in a game of chess here because it's just a strategy game. It really gets the stigma that it's a game of intelligence. But you know what? We were playing, and I remember turning to him in the office and asking him, you know, how do I checkmate you here? I know the game's over, but I really don't know how to end it. And he looked at me like I was stupid. And he said, just make it so that anywhere my king goes, you can take me. And he taught me this this ending move, you know, which is either a queen or a rook. You get 2 of either of those pieces, and you put them in this position here, in a configuration similar to this, anywhere on the board. And they lose. So it's really funny that the person I was playing honestly beat himself, you know. I I don't know if I would have thought of that. I just didn't have it in my arsenal, and now I've used it in several games to checkmate the opponent's king. I think I learned quite a bit playing this game, and reliving it for this video is certainly helpful for me. I wonder if it was entertaining at all. Is there any value to this video? What is the virtue of this video? You tell me. I don't know. Probably well over an hour spent just kind of talking about this match. And, you know, I'm not very good at signing off. But I sign off.